Hey y'all, Nikki Brown here. No matter where you are and what part of the world you are in, I hope that you are having a good day. Um, wanted to discuss a pretty serious topic. Physical abuse. Um, Now I know some people may be in relationships and maybe they've been in these relationships for a long time. And maybe the person didn't start out by being abusive. Maybe the person started out being a different way. Um, but you don't have to allow anyone to abuse you. You can either stand up for yourself and set a boundary, or you can remove yourself from the situation. If you're with somebody and it's only been, say, a month, the sooner you leave, the better. I was watching The Color Purple, and it's amazing how you can watch something and you get a different perspective on it every time. And I remember, but I didn't remember. But I think some other scenes stood out more in my mind than this particular scene. And again, I remember the scene, but I guess it's resonating a little different with me right now, right? So, Sophia approached. First of all, Mr. was the first one who told Harpo he needs to beat Sophia. Then Celie turned around and said the same thing, beat her. So then Harpo got the strength and courage to beat Miss Sophia. And I want some sun, so I'm going to get out of the car because the sun is not shining in my car. If I turn the car around. Let me try that. So, then Harpo gets the strength and the courage, or I should just say the courage, to put his hands on Sophia, right? But then it proceeded to say, Harpo beat on Sophia, Sophia beat on Harpo, and in between there, they had children. And I think they had like 3 or 4 children altogether. I think it was 3. And I think that my point is, yes, they had that first one. But again, she obviously stayed for years and dealt with it in between having children. And so again, I'm suggesting, because there's usually always red flags and non-negotiable behaviors, right? There's usually always something that happens before that first hit or slap or pulling of the hair, or even if it's verbal abuse, that first cussing out, which verbal abuse can also be mental and emotional, and in all, physical abuse can also be mental and emotional, but verbal abuse can really be mental and emotional. And I'm not, saying that anyone should do anything that I've done. I'm not saying that it's easy. Whenever I talk about anything, I think that's one of the first things people like to say, well, it's not easy. Well, everybody can't do that. But I think that if it happens in the beginning, like I said, you've only known this person, say, a month, and you see or even less, or even 2 months. Let's say even go with Steve Harvey's 90 days, right? You've not known this person 6 months or even a year, and you see this behavior. So instead of continuing the behavior, why not distance yourself from it? Perhaps you saw other relatives or friends deal with this, but that doesn't make it okay. That doesn't make it acceptable. And I feel like the best thing or the best way to handle it is to leave sooner than later. As soon as you see, because again, usually it'll start out as something like play fighting, or something really insulting where you may not be quite sure that it's an insult necessarily, but you know how it made you feel. So how did that person make you feel when they said whatever they said? Like one of my exes, who I consider to be verbally abusive, one of the first things he said to me was, "You were stupid for having a baby." That's very insulting to call someone stupid, regardless of how you feel about what they did. And then it's usually coming from a place of insecurity or jealousy. And I don't know if I said this already, but usually the men who put their hands on women would never do something like that to a man. They're usually weak men who are trying to assert their dominance and control over a woman, because they've not been able to get it maybe in another area of their life, or they're insecure about something about themselves and afraid that she's going to leave once she discovers this insecurity. So instead of him working on that, he chooses to belittle her with verbal abuse, or mental and emotional abuse, or even physical abuse, to keep her in a certain place. And then you do have some women who stay. Like, I was just analyzing the dynamics of The Color Purple, right? So you had Miss Seeley, who stayed, right? She came from an environment where who she thought was her father, abused her and told her she better not say anything to anybody except God, right? So she couldn't tell her mother. She was too afraid. She couldn't tell her mother. She couldn't tell her little sister because she felt like her little sister was too young to understand. And she didn't have any friends. So who else was she going to tell? So she proceeds to write letters to God. Dear God. Because she felt like that was the only person she could trust. And the only person, and I'm saying person, but you understand what I mean. This was the only entity or spirit, or because she was basically writing letters to God, right? Because that's who she felt like she could trust and who loved her and who would keep her secret, because she had to keep it a secret, and again couldn't tell her mother what happened. But her mom died of heartbreak. And why was she heartbroken? And then the father, who come to find out he's the stepfather, is basically making her do what the mother wouldn't do, right? And she was young. She already had her second child by the age of 14, right? Which was kind of common back then and during those times. But still, that's very young for a girl to have children, and then for those children to be taken away from her. And her feeling like she couldn't say anything or he would kill her mother. At least that's the perceived threat. Like, oh, you better not let your mother find out because it would kill her. So are you saying that you would kill her, or that she would just be so heartbroken that she would pass away and die, which still ended up happening anyway. She was so heartbroken that she passed away and died. Same thing with Miss Corinne, the pastor's wife, who ended up adopting Olivia and Adam. Then you have Miss Sophia, who said, all my life I had to fight, and I'm sick of it, right? Then she ends up having the ultimate fight with society, because I felt like that whole situation represents, I'm going to say black women, but for some people it's women in general, right? It's women having to fight against society and all the societal norms, or quote unquote perceived norms, or things that they tell us we're supposed to be, or how we're supposed to do things. But Miss Sophia said, I had to fight for everybody. My father, my brothers, everybody. I don't want to have to fight my husband, not my man. Why do I have to fight my man too? And so after all that fighting, she eventually left. And again, she had to get in a fight with society, who, based on the way that she took care of her children. And that's why a lot of people still to this day don't like for themselves or their children to get compliments. It's not that we can't necessarily accept compliments. It's because at a certain point in history, if you were seen as someone who takes care of yourself or took care of your children, or if your children were seen as smart, oh, now I want you to work for me. I want you to be my maid. Or I want your children to write my books or do my engineering work, or whatever that looks like. Right? I want to use you and or your children because you've done such a good job of taking care of yourself and taking care of your children. You done raised them well. So since you done raised them well, I want to take that from you and use it for myself. And so that's why historically some people don't accept compliments well. We think it's just because, and I mean it is based on some other oppression, but that's like the ultimate oppression. I don't want you to take my children and sell them because you think they're good stock and they've been bred well. So again, when Miss Sophia said hell no, this was her way of rebelling against society. But again, she still ended up having the ultimate fight and being put in the system. And it took her years to come out of that mindset that was placed upon her, because you told me hell no, but as soon as you get out of this cell, you're going to be my maid anyway, bitch. Is what she might as well have said. You're going to be my maid any damn way, whether you like it or not. And here she is, oh, I'm learning how to drive. In the meantime, not even treating Miss Sophia as a human. She's just sitting there with her head hung low, can barely walk at this point. After she got hit with the butt of the gun, now her vision is impaired in one eye. Well, I shouldn't say that her vision is impaired, but clearly there's a deficiency there. There's a limp and there's a weak eye. But she didn't care. You're still going to be my maid anyway. And so although we may, do our best to fight against society, there are certain things that are going to happen anyway. Then you had Suge Avery. wasn't even her real name. Her real name is Lily, but she done created this whole stage name and this persona. She gonna leave this one horse town and go to Memphis, Tennessee, and sing, right? Rebelled against her daddy, rebelled against society, and wished the motherfucker would put their hands on her or tell her anything. As a matter of fact, she was cussing Albert's ass the fuck out. And I'm saying it that way intentional. I don't want no goddamn, didn't I tell you I don't want no damn food? Of course, until Celie made her some food. But Albert trying to impress her. Now, it's funny because he didn't want to marry her, right? He married 2 other women over her. Why? Because she didn't want to submit. She wasn't the submissive type. I'm not getting ready to sit here and be no housewife and live in this one horse town. I want to go sing in Memphis, and that's what I'm going to do. So you're either going to come with me or you're going to get on, because this is what I'm getting ready to do. Then once she came back to town, and Miss Sophia nursed her back to health, now she's singing in the juke joint. Now you got all these men in there lusting after her. Girl, you could catch fish with no fishing pole. Talk about all the things that's another thing I didn't recognize before. The men in the juke joint talking about all the things that they would do to her based on her looks and her ability to entertain, right? And in the meantime, Albert is there, and she's basically using him for sex, because at that point she felt like that's all he was good enough for, because he was too weak. Again, most men who put their hands on women are weak. She felt like he wouldn't stand up to his father and marry her because she was too outside the box. So since you was too weak to marry me, I'm just going to use you as a tool. So then he starts to basically bow down to her. I don't know if you can hear that plane going by. So he basically starts to bow down to her and cater to her every need and every whim, because he know he messed up. He knows that she's the woman he should have married. I would go ahead on to say she was probably the only one he was really in love with, even out of the other 2 wives. But you married not 1 other woman, but 2 other women, because you was too much of a punk to stand up to your father and marry me, knowing that you was in love with me. Then they had 3 kids, right? Or she had 3 kids. And the father saying, you don't know if those are damn kids or not. Again, still allowing his father to control him, because she's seen as like worldly, right? She's out there because she wants to sing, to the point where her father even disowned her because she doesn't want to do what they want her to do and be the good hometown girl and just cook and clean and stay home and raise kids. No, she had her parents raise her kids because she wanted to sing. She pursued the life that she wanted to pursue. Now, it did lead to some depression. Why? Because she wasn't with the man she really wanted to be with until later on. For years she was just out in the world by herself, doing her thing. And although she was happy to do her thing, she became an alcoholic at a certain point. But then she comes back and she teaches Celie how to love, and Celie basically teaches her how to be a little bit more humble and a little bit more grateful. right? And a little bit more appreciative of what you have and the life that you live. Because I'm here getting my ass beat when you get to leave and go whenever you want to back to Memphis. And when you're not here, he beat on me, is what she said. But at that point, she was still too afraid to speak her mind. Like, she thought she was going to gather up her things and go to Memphis with Suge. But at the end of the day, she still wasn't strong enough to stand up to Mr. or Albert. She didn't even know, you know, she was with that man all those years, raised his kids, cleaned his house, and she didn't even know that man's real name. The whole time she just called him Mr. Can you imagine? But some people are in actual relationships like that. Now, well, you don't really know this person because you never took the time to get to know each other. You just stood on display, spun around, and started having sex, moved in with each other, and now you's married now. And I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just saying some people don't know who they're married to. And that husband or that wife will leave and go wherever they want to go and do whatever they want to do, and you better not say anything to them about it. Some wives, they'll have their husbands thinking they're doing one thing, and they got a whole completely different lifestyle too. So it goes both ways. I'm not picking on any gender. Yeah, that door swings both ways. She said, oh, I'm going to my girlfriend's house. They could be bisexual, or as soon as he drop her off, another man can come pick her up. It be all kinds of stuff going on. And I often say, women are much better at the cheating thing than men are. Women are usually much better at being slick than men are. Because again, all she got to do, oh, I'm getting ready to go get my hair done, my nails done. She may really go get those things done. She might slap a wig on. She might put some press-on nails on. How do you know? Are you really inspecting them like that? And if a nail pop off, all she got to do is glue it back on. Right? But in the meantime, she got her limbs up. Somebody got her hemmed up with her limbs up. Good, how are you? So it's just a matter of doing things a little different. How are you showing up? And what are you allowing to happen? Did you think it was acceptable, or did you think that this meant this person loves you? Because perhaps, again, you saw another relative go through the same thing, so you think that this is how things are supposed to be. I don't know, I'm asking. Or is it because this person has a place for you to stay and you need a place to stay? Or this person's loin massages are great. or whatever that looks like, right? This person is so good in bed, or you think because this person had sex with you within a certain time frame, that means that they really like you, when in the meantime, they were really using you for something. Because some people do use people for control reasons. Okay, I want to dominate and control you. Or I want to dominate and control somebody, and you're the next victim. I want to use you for what I want to use you for, and then toss you away. But if you allow me to, I may allow you to stick around a little bit longer so that I can use you a little bit more and do what I want you to do, because you're going to do it. Is that the situation? Is that what's going on? Because again, I basically live across the street from the airport. Not literally, but kind of, sort of. Like, there's a little highway, and on the other side of that is the airport. For the most part. So, like, at night, from a certain spot on my street, I can look at the lights at the airport. So, I don't know if you hear those planes, but they're pretty loud. So that's one of the reasons why I paused. But anyhow, like I said, you have 3 different women with 3 different dynamics. One who allowed herself to be beat, one who fought back, and one who again said, I wish a motherfucker would. So, and I think that people get this misunderstood. Like, say for example, I'm an Aquarius, but there are 12 different kinds of Aquarius. I've met some Aquarians who do things that I would never do. They behave in ways that I would never behave. And this is not a judgment. This is just who I am. And I have certain morals, values, and sensibilities that would not allow me to do certain things. This is not to say that I'm perfect. I don't think that at all. This is not to say things that I haven't done things that maybe society wouldn't accept, or think is ladylike, or whatever you want to call it. Who cares though? I'm not here to live for society. This is my life, and I do what I want to do. I live my life like it's golden, the way that I want to, not based on what somebody else thinks or wants me to do. Because that's not why I'm here. Right? So again, this is not about being perfect. This is not about saying that someone should be like me or should do the things that I would do or wouldn't do. It's not about that. Right? Again, this is not judgment or criticism, because really I don't care what you do. It's not to be mean and not to be uncaring or unkind. Like, that's not the purpose. But what you do with your behind or your tool, I don't care. It has nothing to do with me, right? What you do with your person, with your car, with your clothes, with your whatever, it has nothing to do with me. Whatever type of career or whatever you decide to do, it has nothing to do with me, for real. So I don't care. And I know that some people, like I remember back in the day, somebody that I knew was like, oh, well, homosexual this, and they shouldn't be a da-da-da-da-da. Why do you care? That's none of your business. I even had somebody say to me recently, well, what are you supposed to do this person worked in a store. Well, what are you supposed to do if somebody's flamboyant? That's none of your damn business. And first of all, how are you judging that person when you've had your own bisexual experiences? So are you now feeling guilty and you want to shame somebody else because you feel ashamed about what you've done? Is that what we're doing now? I said you need to mind your damn business. That don't have nothing to do with you. Yeah, but it just be, so what? If they come and you stand in your line, you check them out and serve them just like you would any other customer, and wish them a good goddamn day if you want to do anything. But anyway, I forgot what I was saying. I know that people, can do whatever they choose to do or want to do. And again, this is not about judgment, but are you staying in a certain situation because, again, you are trying to people please a relative or friend that says that this is what you're supposed to do? Even those people who say, oh, well, you're just not supposed to give up, right? I don't see it that way. If you're getting bopped upside your head and cussed out and mistreated, and you decide to head down a different path, I don't see that as giving up. I see that as you putting yourself first. I see that as you loving yourself, not allowing yourself to be abused or manipulated. Like I learned from one of my relatives who stayed in a marriage for 25 years and said it was a miserable marriage from the beginning because they were getting beat up. And my first thought, well, what I learned from that at a very young age, before my first relationship even started, is to leave sooner than later. Because I'm thinking to myself, why did you stay that long? Why did you feel the need to stay that long? But then this person admits that they lied to their parents and said they were pregnant in order for them to sign off for this person to get married. And then this person ends up getting pregnant, but didn't want the child because they didn't want to be pregnant. Like they weren't ready to be pregnant. This person was 16 years old when this happened. So you lied and said you were pregnant. They end up getting pregnant and didn't want to be. So at a certain point, we have to be accountable and responsible for the choices that we've made. So instead of choosing to, and again, this is not judgment, this is just sharing a different perspective, right? So instead of going to school, because you wanted to get out of your parents' house, you decided to marry somebody who was abusive and stay. And actually give birth to 5 different children with the same abusive person. Again, Miss Sophia, if I'm not mistaken, there was 3 or 4 kids that Miss Sophia and Harpo had. And I paid attention to this part before, but it just, I guess, hit me different this time. Or it showed up different in my mind. This particular scene, this is the scene where you see the sisters come and taking the kids away from Harpo while he's sitting in the rocking chair with the kids. And they said, Miss Sophia beat on Harpo, Harpo beat on Miss Sophia. And it basically went back and forth. And in between that time, they had kids. So it took for them to have 3 or 4 kids and several fights. Because Miss Sophia wasn't letting him just beat on her. She was fighting back. She had a black eye, but he did too. And she bust his lip. So she wasn't just sitting there. And she said she had to fight with all the men in her family, and she was tired, and she felt like she shouldn't have to fight her man. Right? Should you feel like you have to fight your man? Why should you have to feel like you have to fight anybody? Right? So then again, you have Suge, who said, I wish a motherfucker would. And she didn't put up with none of that shit. She didn't listen to her daddy. And I think that's one of the things that I've always said in my life. If I didn't allow my mother to do certain things, why would I let you get away with it? You're not getting ready to control me. Who does? I'm not her. Not her. I'm too much of a free spirit. That doesn't mean that I'm just out here doing whatever with whoever. I remember having my first apartment. And because I've always basically gotten along with men better than women, because I don't like the cattiness, I don't like the gossiping, I don't like it. And so historically, I've distanced myself from women. Right? Some men have a problem with that. I don't know what to tell you. But just because I had more male friends does not mean that I was having sex with those men. Right? So I had my own place. I had my male friends. They smoke, drink, whatever. I was the only one with my own apartment. I think I was 19 or 20 when I got my first apartment. Right? So they were still living at home, or maybe living with whoever. Right? Most of them were living with some family member, whether it be mother, father, sister, brother, right? Most people at that age, where I grew up at, did not have their own place. So my house was the hangout. My house was the party spot. Play cards, whatever. And again, I had more male friends than female friends. And because I didn't have many men in my life growing up, I learned from these men. And because I was not having sex with them, they would pretty much do anything for me. And not only that, they would give me good advice about the men that I was dealing with, or that I wanted to deal with. And if it was an unfavorable situation, they would let me know quick, nah, leave that one alone. Don't mess with that person. That person is so and so and so. So they would put me down and give me game about how men think. Did I know everything about men? No. Did I still, make choices that maybe didn't serve a good purpose in my life along the way? Absolutely. But I knew what was going on. I remember this one guy, and I really liked him. And so there have been times where I've had relations with a guy hoping that we would be in a relationship, because at a certain point I felt like that's how you get in a relationship. And we live and we learn, right? So I'm thinking, okay, you give this guy or you show this guy how good of a woman you can be, or good of a person you can be, and they'll eventually want to be in a relationship. Which has its place, but not all the time, not with everybody, and not necessarily in that way. But again, you live and you learn, right? So this was this one guy in particular who I really liked, and I was hoping that, he would choose me for a relationship. And we slept together a few times. And when he came to my house, it was funny, he called himself sneaking out. But I'm a light sleeper, so I would know. I would feel him get up. I would feel him, I knew that he was getting dressed, and he would leave. And as soon as he left, I would get up and lock my door. But he just knew he was just sneaking out, and that I didn't know anything, and I was completely oblivious. But the thing about it is, at a certain point, I knew he wasn't going to be my man, so I didn't care. And then after a while, I just stopped dealing with him, because that's what I do. We're not going to keep going through this. Maybe it lasted a couple months. But he really, it was funny, because I promise you, as soon as I heard him start his car, I would get up and lock my door. And he really thought he was being slick or sneaky. So again, have I made some choices that maybe didn't serve a good purpose? Absolutely. But usually with the intent of being in a relationship. Not just to do it just because. But if you're mistreating me in any type of way, this is only going to last but so long. Sex isn't but so good. Like my aunt says, a penis is a penis. They might come in different sizes. One might go to the left, the other might go to the right. But it's really not that serious. And she didn't say the word penis. She definitely said the D word. You can make it do what it do if you need to, regardless of what size it. And I know some women don't think that way. They're like, oh no, it was too small for me, or too big for me even. Believe it or not, some women don't want all of that. Just like some men don't want women with big behinds. Some women are into women with big boobs. Sure, it's fun to look at, but some of them don't necessarily want all of that. Some women prefer a more petite woman who has a smaller behind, a smaller body, smaller breasts, and they're perfectly fine with those fun bags because they don't have any themselves. So everybody has a different preference. Everybody doesn't want the same thing. Everybody's needs are different. Everybody doesn't need all of that. And some people that have all of that, they just as insecure as somebody who doesn't. Or vice versa. Confidence doesn't come in any shape, size, or color. It's just either somebody's confident or they're not. And I think that men are more attracted to confident women than anything. But if they see that there's a weakness, if he has a weakness, 9 times out of 10, he's going to attract a woman with a weakness. And some men will use that weakness to their advantage, just like some women will use that weakness to their advantage. But women are just better at it. For the most part. It's that femme fatale. She will use her feminine wiles to get what she wants and needs from that situation. And really make him think that he likes her. But if it's a situation where she's using him for money and his money goes away, she out of there. And then he'll realize that maybe it wasn't what he thought it was to begin with. And it could be years that have gone by. Kids and everything. It don't matter. Not if she had an agenda from the jump. And that's not to say that this person doesn't necessarily care about you or love you, but it was conditional. I love you based on the condition that you can provide for me. And when that time comes that you can no longer provide, or you're no longer willing to provide, I'm out. Pew! That person will pune it right on out of there. And that's just what it is sometimes. It doesn't happen in every situation. Some people, like Tammy and Waka Flocka, I don't think that she's there for what he has or who he is. I think she genuinely loves that man. And I think that even if he didn't have money, she would still be with him. But, you know, he wasn't showing up the way that she needed him to. And if a woman has certain abandonment issues or fear of rejection, and a man is not catering to her love language, or if he has roaming eyes, or whatever the situation may be, because I'm not saying that that's what the situation is, right? But whatever the situation may be, if he's not able to live up to her love language, then she may make that decision to walk away, regardless of how much she loves him, regardless of whether or not they have children, regardless of any of those things. This is not serving a good purpose in my life, so I'm going to go ahead on and cut my losses and move on. And then that leaves some people feeling devastated, whether it's a male or female, like, oh, well, I thought you loved me. I do, but like Tina said, what's love got to do with it? What does love have to do with it? If I'm not being treated correctly, and if my love language is not being satisfied, you could love me less. I could love you less. I could still love you, could be in love with you. But if my needs aren't being met, why does that matter? I've said this before. One of my exes says, you don't put up with bullshit. And my question has always been, am I supposed to? You don't put up with nobody bullshit. Am I supposed to? Is that what we supposed to do? I didn't know that's what we were supposed to do. I didn't get the memo, I guess. In order to deal with somebody, whether it's a relative, a romantic partner, or a friend. So in order to deal with somebody, you got to put up with their bullshit. Is that really how that's supposed to go? Because, again, I didn't get the memo. And if I did get the memo, I probably put it in the round file, which is the trash. And I would go ahead on to say that this is why a great deal of women are single. Not because they can't find anybody. Not because they're not wanted. And I don't even like that question when men ask, oh, why are you single? What's wrong with you? What do you mean, what's wrong with me? Why couldn't it be that I just chose myself? And instead of choosing to deal with a situation that doesn't serve a good purpose in my life. I know some good women who never got married, and since they didn't get married, they didn't have children, right? And some of them are in their 40s or 50s now, and so now some of them considered washed up or old, right? But they did the right thing, quote unquote, right? They went to church and they waited. I'm not saying they waited to have sex. I'm not saying that they're virgins, but I do know one. Like the 40-year-old virgin wasn't just a movie. There are some people who waited, really, because they thought they were going to meet this great man and get married and have kids. And again, because that didn't happen, they decided not to have any children. So now it's not that they didn't want children. You have a lot of women in the older, I'm going to say 45 plus, I'm going to even say 40 plus. Not that 40's old, because I'm not saying that 40's old, and there's still opportunity to have a child if this woman wants to. But at this point, it's like her pool of men is lessened, is reduced, as they say. And then where is she meeting these men? Because, you know, some women in their 40s or 50s still go out, but a lot of them just stay home and, you know, maybe they go out to dinner, but they're not necessarily going to like social settings where they're meeting marriage-minded men. They may be, some do. A lot of women go out on solo dates or hang out at the hardware store or the bookstore where, you know. But again, the pool of marriage-minded men who would still want to marry and have children with a woman over 40 is slimmer. Not it still exists. They still exist, but there is just not a large pool of applicants as there are in the 20s. So some people like to say, oh, well, she's still single because she had a baby, or she had two babies, or she's a divorcee. But I don't think that any of those things have anything to do with it. Because again, I know some very good women who waited and quote unquote did the right thing. They did not have kids. But then at a certain point, they went on ahead and bought a house, because how long do I need to wait for this man to show up? So then, because now she has a house, so okay, she's over 40 and or over 50 even, and she has her own house. So now she's even less valuable, or even less of an asset, because maybe he doesn't have a house. So now she's even more intimidating, because she's the Sugar Avery type. Although she may be a combination of all three, because Miss Sophia was, she took care of the household. So did Celie. Celie took care of home. Miss Sophia took care of home. I would even say that Suge would have been willing. I mean, she did eventually become a wife, right? So there's still that willingness to. And I know some people have read the book and some people haven't. So I'm pretty much sticking to the film and not focusing on the details in the book. Because of course the book goes more in depth, and I do have the book, right? But I think that if Albert had married her and went to Memphis with her, and not try to stay close to his daddy and cater to and please his daddy and do what his daddy wanted him to do, I think that they would have had a good life together. But instead, he ended up getting cussed out by her because he was too much of a weak man to stand up to his father. And so now he running around kissing her behind, and Celie just sitting here looking like, who in the world is this man? She even pulled up the chair like, who is this? Who are you? Where did you come from? You daggone there kissing this woman behind, but with me, you just get on top of me and do your business and beat the crap out of me. But she got you running around in circles. Why? Because she left. I think that a lot of times, and it doesn't always change the behavior, but sometimes if you're willing to leave and show that you will not deal with whatever, it forces a person to change. Now again, that doesn't always happen, because there are some men who they're abusive in every relationship they're in. Like my neighbor, he's been through at least 5 or 6 different women, and I've heard him fighting every last one of them. So what happened in his childhood to make him want to put his hands on a woman? Again, this is weak punk to me. I don't see anything strong about putting your hands on a woman. I feel like that's a punk. And 9 times out of 10, he would not do that to another man. Now, in certain situations, I could be wrong. But either he going to do it to a man he considers weak, or a woman he feels like he can dominate and control. So he's just a weak punk, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not suggesting that anyone should do anything, but I don't know. I just remember old girl with those grits. So I don't know. Again, you had three different women. One who didn't fight at all, one who did fight, and one who said, I wish a motherfucker would. And everybody has a right to do what they feel is best for them in their situation. But I think that I'm tired of hearing my neighbor beat women up. I think that's why I did this. I think that I'm tired of that. One night it was like, get off me. And this lasted for a while, a good at least 5-10 minutes. So I don't know if he was choking her or holding her down or what. But I was really mortified. Like, why are you doing that? And then she decided to stay. I think that's what's disturbing me even more. I just don't like it because I don't like to hear it, especially when there isn't anything that I can do about it. Because remember the part in the Queens of Comedy where Laura Hayes, she said her sisters was slapping five over the seat and smoking a joint on their way to the sister house to beat the husband up. I wish she had somebody that could come beat him up. And I don't condone violence. But there should be some type of help or intervention. And I almost feel like she's doing it because she needs a place to stay. But I could be wrong. But nobody's sex is that good. Nobody's. I don't care how big, small, whatever. I don't care. It's not good enough for you to put up with anybody's abuse for any reason. Call 211 if you need a place to stay. Go sleep on somebody's couch. But don't let nobody keep bopping you upside your head because you need a place to stay. Or because they have money. I just don't like it. It doesn't sit well with me. And it's none of my business. But when I have to hear it and I get woken up out my sleep at various times of the night because of it, it kind of makes me feel some kind of way. So I just wanted to share that thought. I hope that this was helpful to somebody. There is help out there. There are all sorts of domestic abuse hotlines you can call. I know one of my friends, her sister, when she was dealing with, and I don't remember the exact details if he had put his hands on her or if he was just verbally abusive. But when he left to go to work, he worked and she didn't. She saved up enough money to get a truck, to get some moving guys to come, and she moved everything out of the house, including the spices. So sometimes you just have to plan an exit strategy and move on with your whole entire life. Whether you have kids or don't have kids, you can get help. Even if you're a man, because again, I shared the story with one of my friends who his woman would tell him he wasn't shit. She would break up stuff, break up MacBook computers and stereo equipment and all kinds of expensive stuff. All because of her insecurities and fears and jealousies. And that's usually what it is. These are people who are weak, insecure, jealous. They have rejection, fear of rejection or fear of abandonment issues. And they need to work on those issues and not take it out on other people by trying to control and manipulate a situation and get people to do what they want them to do, the way that they want them to do. And if they don't, they feel like this person needs to get bopped upside their head because that's what was done to them. No, that's not how that's supposed to go. And, you know, everybody can deal with whatever they want to deal with, but I certainly didn't deal with it. So I'm speaking from experience and not just talking, just to talk. Love y'all. Later.